Good day. My name is John Angargiolo with FEMA's Hazard Mitigation Directorate. Welcome to the fiscal year 2026 Rehabilitation of High Hazard Potential Dams Notice of Funding Opportunity webinar. Thank you for tuning in to this pre-recorded webinar, and thank you for your interest in this funding opportunity. With me today as presenters are Victor Okpulo, Katie Goolsby-Brown, and Janae Jordan. And with that, we shall now begin with Victor, our first presenter.
Thank you. Today's webinar will walk through the fiscal year 2026 Rehabilitation of High Hazard Potential Dams Funding Opportunity. We'll begin with a brief overview, then cover eligibility and application requirements, program details and key dates, and how to apply in FEMA GO. We'll close with resources and next steps. After reviewing this informational webinar, if you have any questions, please reach out to your regional dam safety officer. Thank you for taking the time to review this informational webinar. I'll dive into specifics for the fiscal year 2026 Rehabilitation of High Hazard Potential Dams Funding Opportunity. We'll start with program background and eligibility. This section explains the purpose of the HHPD program, who may apply, who may receive funds as a subrecipient, and the key planning and documentation requirements for Part 1 of the application. The Rehabilitation of High Hazard Potential Dams Grant Program is part of the National Dam Safety Program. Its goal is to reduce or eliminate risk from eligible high hazard potential dams. A high hazard potential dam is one whose failure is misoperation would likely result in loss of human life. The FY fiscal year 2026 Notice of Funding Opportunity identifies 16,875 high hazard potential dams in the United States. There are nearly 8,000 in the country that are classified as deficient. These dams pose an unacceptable risk to the public and need to be rehabilitated. Eligible activities may include planning, design, repair, rehabilitation, or removal of eligible dams. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers manages the national inventory of dams for the nation. Eligible applicants include states with state dam safety programs authorized by state legislation, with the exception noted in the NOFO, and Puerto Rico. Each eligible applicant must designate one state administrative agency to apply for and administer HHPD funding. Eligible subrecipients may include local governments, state agencies, tribal nations, and nonprofits. At this stage, applicants should focus on the major eligibility considerations. The dam must be regulated under the State Dam Safety Program. The community where the dam is located must participate in the National Flood Insurance Program and be in good standing. Required hazard mitigation plans must also address all dam risks. Additional project level requirements apply during the Part 2 Scope of Work Amendment. All applicants and subrecipients must comply with federal grants, administrative requirements, and regulations in Section 200 of Title II of the Code of Federal Regulations. Finally, subrecipients must also commit to provide operation and maintenance of the project for the expected life of the dam, have or develop a floodplain management plan for the project, and for awards greater than $1 million, comply with labor and wage laws in Title 40 of the United States Code, Chapter 11. This chapter is specific about procurement and architectural and engineering services. There will be a second webinar in October to go over the Part 2 requirements. A key eligibility requirement is the hazard mitigation plan requirement. Applicants must have a FEMA-approved state mitigation plan by the application deadline and at the time of the award. Subrecipient projects must be covered by a FEMA-approved local or tribal mitigation plan when the state administrative agency submits the scope of work application and when FEMA approves it. These requirements must include all dam risk. If an approved plan does not yet include all dam risk, a 12-month extraordinary circumstances extension may be requested. The timing is different for applicants and subrecipients. Applicants must have FEMA-approved state mitigation plan by application deadline and at award, and that plan must include all dam risk. For subrecipients, the jurisdiction where the dam is located must have a FEMA-approved local mitigation plan when the state administrative agency submits the scope of work package and when FEMA approves it. That plan must also include all dam risk. If dam risks are not included, a 12-month extraordinary circumstances extension may also be requested. An extraordinary circumstances extension may be requested to update an approved mitigation plan to include all dam risk. The request must be submitted in FEMA GO and include coordination between the State Dam Safety Program and the State Hazard Mitigation Office. It must also include a written justification explaining why the plan requirement is not fully met, identify the resources that will be used to update the plan, and provide a schedule and milestone showing the plan will be updated and submitted for FEMA review within the required time frame. For Part 1, each application must include 4 specific documents: the list of eligible high hazard potential dams, the proposed overall budget, the statement of assurances signed by the authorized state official, and the state administrative plan. As a best practice, applicants should submit the eligible dam list in a spreadsheet format. Note, the proposed overall budget should describe the state's need to rehabilitate high hazard potential dams, include a brief narrative explaining how the requested funds will support the rehabilitation of high hazard potential dams program priorities and performance goals. The budget should also include the proposed funding amount, the cost share percentage, and a summary of any in-kind activities. The eligible dam list is one of the most important Part 1 documents. In general, an eligible high hazard potential dam must be non-federal, located in a state with an authorized state dam safety program, regulated under that program, and classified as a high hazard potential dam by the State Dam Safety Agency. The dam must also be covered by an emergency action plan approved by or pending approval from the State Dam Safety Agency. It must be determined by the State Dam Agency to fail minimum state dam safety standards and be rated poor or unsatisfactory in the National Inventory of Dams as of July 15, 2026. Certain hydroelectric dams over 1.5 megawatts and dams built under the authority of the Secretary of Agriculture are not eligible. In addition to required national inventory of dams data, applicants must provide state-specific information for the eligible dams list. This includes whether the dam fails to meet minimum state dam safety standards, whether it has a documented dam safety deficiency, whether the deficiency was caused by lack of routine operation and maintenance or deferred maintenance, and a brief description of the deficiency. If a potential eligible subrecipient has been identified and contacted, that information should also be included. The state administrative plan must identify the state administrative agency responsible for program administration and the state official responsible for financial and program matters. It must also describe the process for timely quarterly performance progress reporting and identifying staffing requirements and staffing sources for program administration. If the SAA will serve as a pass-through entity, the plan should also describe pass-through procedures, including subrecipient identification, selection, monitoring, and technical assistance. At this time, I'd like to introduce Katie Goolsby Brown, who will summarize what important documentation you must have with your application. Katie?
Thank you, Victor. Next, we will move from eligibility and required documents to program details and key dates. This section highlights important deadlines, key fiscal year 2026 updates, and the overall application process. There are 3 important dates to keep in mind. Part 1 applications must be submitted by Monday, August 31st, 2026 at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Applicants experiencing technical issues must notify FEMA by Monday, August 31st, 2026 at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. Part 2 Scope of Work amendments must be submitted by Thursday, December 31st, 2026 at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Applicants should plan ahead and avoid waiting until the deadline to address system access, documentation, or submission issues. There are several changes to this year's funding opportunity. If you recall, the last time there was a high hazard potential dam funding opportunity was in the fall of 2023. Please note, these changes do not impact Part 1 of the application process. They take place in Part 2 beginning in October, when states have to submit scopes of work for subrecipients whose applications were selected. The fiscal year 2026 funding opportunity includes these updates. The 35% non-federal cost share may be reduced or waived for qualifying communities, as described in the Notice of Funding Opportunity. The Notice of Funding Opportunity also provides clarified floodplain management plan requirements. New reporting requirements include project return on investment and national level risk reduction. Finally, strong recipient performances may qualify for reduced administrative burden, while insufficient performance may result in additional oversight or conditions. Part 1 of the application process is organized into 4 main steps. First, applicants identify eligible dams. Second, applicants submit the application. Third, FEMA conducts eligibility and completeness reviews. Fourth, FEMA allocates funding. The next slides will walk through each of these steps in more detail. The first step is to identify eligible high hazard potential dams. At a minimum, applicants must include all eligible high-hazard potential dams that meet the applicable statutory and program requirements. These include non-federal dams located in states with state dam safety programs, dams classified as high hazard potential by the State Dam Safety Agency, and dams with an emergency action plan approved by the relevant state dam safety agency. The state must also determine that the dam fails to meet minimum dam safety standards and poses an unacceptable risk to the public. Dams are prioritized based on the likelihood of failure, the potential consequences of a dam incident, and the expected risk reduction benefits of the project. The second step is to submit the application in FEMA Grants Outcome, or FEMA GO. As a reminder, let's review the application deadline again. Applicants must submit their application by Monday, August 31st, 2026 at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. FEMA GO will date stamp the submitted application, and applicants will receive an electronic message confirming receipt. Applicants who experience technical issues must notify the FEMA GO service desk no later than 3 p.m. Eastern Time on Monday, August 31st, 2026. The FEMA GO service desk can be reached by phone or email using the contact information shown on the slide. The third step is FEMA's eligibility and completeness review. Applications are reviewed based on whether the applicant has the authority and expertise to meet grant program requirements, whether the dams submitted meet eligibility requirements, whether funds will be used to meet high hazard potential dam program goals and priorities, and whether all required documentation has been submitted. Applicants should ensure the Part 1 application is complete and that all required documentation are clearly labeled and uploaded in FEMA GO. The fourth step is funding allocation. Under this program, 1/3 of available funding is distributed equally among the states for which eligible applications are submitted. The remaining 2/3 is distributed among states that submit applications with allowable activities based on each state's proportion of eligible high hazard potential dams submitted. For fiscal year 2026, $11.4 million has been made available. The maximum award allowable is $1.425 million. The standard non-federal cost share is not less than 35% and may include in-kind contributions. The cost share may be waived for some communities, as described in the Notice of Funding Opportunity. At this time, I'd like to introduce my colleague, Janae Jordan, who will summarize the steps of applying for this funding opportunity.
Thank you, Katie. Next, we'll talk about applying to this program in the FEMA Grants Outcome System, or FEMA GO, and the important deadlines. How to apply. Eligible applicants must apply for funding using FEMA Grants Outcomes, FEMA GO, at the FEMA GO portal. Technical user manuals and support materials are available on the FEMA GO site for hazard mitigation assistance grants. The application period will close at 5 p.m. Eastern Time on Monday, August 31, 2026. System-related issues will be addressed by FEMA until 3 p.m. Eastern Time on Monday, August 31, 2026. All applications must be received in FEMA GO before the application period deadline. If you are a first-time FEMA GO user, you must be an eligible applicant to apply for this grant. Subrecipients cannot apply directly to FEMA GO. Next, confirm that your sam.gov account and Unique Entity Identifier, or UEI, are active. Set up a login.gov account using your work email. You will also need to connect with the electronic business point of contact listed on your sam.gov account to add an authorized organization representative to your team. For additional information and troubleshooting, refer to the FEMA GO Startup Guide. If you are a returning FEMA GO user, make sure your sam.gov account and UEI are active and renewed annually. As an AOR, review your team members, update roles, and remove anyone who is no longer with your organization. It is important to have at least one AOR on the team. Having redundancy is helpful in case an AOR leaves. Ensure all team members can log in successfully. For more details, consult the FEMA GO Startup Guide. The authorized organization representative, such as the state administrative agency, must create the grant application. Once the AOR signs assurances and certifications, an application ID is generated. Now I'll share information about program resources that may be useful as you learn more about rehabilitation of high hazard potential dams and start to build your application. I want to quickly highlight key resources for FY2026 rehabilitation of high hazard potential dams. Visit FEMA.gov's Rehabilitation of High Hazard Potential Dams page for program details and application guidance. All resources provided are located on FEMA.gov with the exception of the link to the National Inventory of Dams, which is hosted by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Coordinate with your FEMA Regional Office National Dam Safety Program Manager for additional support. Subrecipients are encouraged to reach out to their state dam safety office as the primary point of contact for questions and assistance. The Hazard Mitigation Assistance Program and Policy Guide provides overall requirements of HMA programs, which includes rehabilitation of high hazard potential dams. Applicants should coordinate through FEMA Regional Office points of contacts, and subrecipients should maintain contact with their state dam safety offices. For FEMA GO system support, contact the FEMA GO helpline. We will be hosting office hours for FEMA GO in late August, so please check our website for updates. Please fill out the post-webinar survey using the code on the screen. Thank you so much for attending today's webinar. We appreciate you joining us as we discuss more important updates, opportunities, and resources available to communities under the Rehabilitation of High Hazard Potential Dams program. In a few weeks, look out for the registration link for the Part 2 webinar in October on completing the scope of work packages.